Hello everyone, welcome to Frightful Whispers. I'm here to guide you into the shadows tonight. I know you're using this video to unwind and drift off to sleep. So, before we begin, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Where are you watching from? And what time is it for you? Now, get cozy, relax, and let the whispers of the night take over. I can still feel it. That strange pull, like we were being drawn to something we couldn't see, something we couldn't quite understand. It all started like any other road trip. Just me and Lisa cruising through the endless highway, chasing the horizon, feeling free. There's something about the open road that makes you forget everything else, like the world just fades away behind you. The music in the car, the sound of the tires on the pavement, the wind rushing through the windows. It was all perfect. We were escaping everything, just living in the moment. I was behind the wheel, and Lisa had her legs curled up in the passenger seat, gazing out at the scenery. She's always been the curious one, the dreamer. Me? I like the adventure, the thrill of the unknown. That's why I was driving. We were in it together, and every mile felt like we were free to do anything. "Are you still thinking about that photo from the last stop?" she asked, breaking the silence, her voice a little softer than usual. I shifted my gaze to her for a second, a grin pulling at the corner of my lips. Maybe, that guy at the gas station, it felt off, didn't it? Like he was selling us more than just snacks. She laughed, but there was a hint of hesitation in her tone. "You think everyone's off, Jake. He was just trying to make a sale, nothing more." I tried to shake it off. She was right. But that lingering feeling, it stuck with me. Something about the way he said goodbye, like he knew we'd be gone in a hurry. We were quiet for a while, and I noticed the sky starting to change. The air felt heavier, and the light of the fading sun began to take on that eerie golden hue. It was beautiful, almost too beautiful, like a warning I couldn't quite place. Lisa shifted in her seat, staring out the window. "Have you ever noticed how quiet it gets in places like this?" she asked. "No birds, no animals. It's like the world's holding its breath." She was right. The world was still, unnaturally so. There were no sounds, no movement, just silence pressing in from all sides. It felt wrong, and yet we kept driving. But then ahead, something changed. The horizon, once wide open, now narrowed into a thick line of trees, dark and looming. And the air, it felt colder. Not just chilly, but wrong. The kind of cold that sinks into your bones. I couldn't explain it, but my grip on the steering wheel tightened. "Something's not right," I muttered, glancing at Lisa. She sat up, her eyes narrowing as she peered ahead through the windshield. "You feel it too, huh?" Before I could answer, the fog rolled in. It wasn't like the fog you see in the early morning. It came thick and fast, swallowing the road in front of us, making everything feel distant. The headlights barely cut through it, and the further we drove, the less we could see. I was starting to regret not turning back. My gut was telling me to stop, to just pull over, but Lisa, she's the one who always pushes us forward, always curious, always wanting to see what's next. "Do you think we should pull over?" she asked, her voice barely audible over the growing hum of the fog around us. I wanted to say yes, to turn around, but I didn't. Something kept me going, an invisible force, like the road itself was pulling me in. "Let's just keep going," I said, but my words didn't feel right. They didn't sound like me. They were hollow. And then, through the mist, I saw it. At first, it was just a silhouette, barely visible through the swirling fog. But as we neared, it became clearer. A town, or what should have been a town. There was something off about it, though. The buildings were dark, no lights, no movement. The streets completely deserted. I swear, not even a single car was parked on the side of the road. It was as if the whole place had been abandoned overnight. "What is this place?" Lisa asked, her voice small, filled with that mix of fear and curiosity I knew too well. I didn't have an answer, but I knew one thing. I had a bad feeling. A very bad feeling. The closer we got, the more I could feel it pressing in on me. The air felt thick, heavier, suffocating. The town was swallowed by fog, and the silence, it was so deep, so absolute, that even the sound of our engine seemed out of place. It was as if the town was holding its breath, waiting for us. "Should we stop?" Lisa asked, but her voice wasn't as confident as it usually was. I didn't want to. I wanted to leave, to drive off, to forget we ever saw this place. But something kept me glued to the wheel, my foot light on the gas pedal as I inched closer to the diner up ahead. I could barely make it out through the fog, but the faint flicker of a neon sign caught my eye. "Welcome to Alston. Population unknown." The words didn't make sense. Unknown? The population should have been a number, but I knew better than to question it. I was already too far in. Lisa stared at the sign, her eyes widening as she leaned forward. "Jake, let's just turn around. This doesn't feel right." But it was too late. The town was already here, and we were already part of it. I felt the weight of the place settling on me like a heavy cloak, a suffocating embrace I couldn't escape from. We parked in front of the diner, but the air inside was just as thick, just as dead. No one was there, not a soul. It was like we were the last ones left. And yet, somehow, it felt like the town was waiting for us to make the next move. And that's when we saw it. A photograph on the wall, yellowed with age, featuring a group of smiling faces. I felt my stomach drop as I looked at the picture. Our faces. Smiling at the camera, sitting with people we didn't recognize in a town we had never been to. And in that moment I understood. We weren't just passing through. We were meant to be here. And the town wasn't done with us yet. Let me tell you about a moment that still haunts me to this day. It was supposed to be another simple stop on our road trip, just another diner in the middle of nowhere. But the second we stepped inside, I knew something was off. We'd been driving for hours, the road stretching endlessly before us. Lisa and I were used to this, chasing the horizon, chasing adventure. But there was something different about that place. The fog had rolled in so thick it felt like we were driving through a dream. And then there it was, the diner, old, decayed, shrouded in mist. I didn't want to stop. I swear, deep down, something told me not to. But Lisa, well, she's the curious one. She was already looking at the building with that mix of excitement and unease. We parked, and the feeling of being watched crept up on me before I could even put the car in park. The door to the diner creaked when we pushed it open. I swear, it felt like the sound cut through the thick silence outside, slicing through the air like a scream held back too long. The bell above the door jingled, but it didn't sound like a normal bell. It was too hollow, too empty, as if it didn't even belong here. Everything about that place felt wrong. Inside, it was even worse. It was dark. Darker than it should have been for a diner at what should have been a regular hour. The lights overhead flickered weakly, casting shadows that stretched too long. The air smelled stale, like grease and dust had fused into a strange, suffocating mixture that clung to your skin. And the silence. God, the silence. It was too quiet. It was like everything had been frozen in time, left behind as if no one had been here for years. Yet somehow, everything remained in place. Every chair, every glass, every table, untouched. Frozen in some bizarre moment, like a still photo waiting to come to life. I looked at Lisa. She was walking ahead of me, her eyes scanning the diner. Even she could feel it now. There was something heavy in the air. It was suffocating, like the whole place was holding its breath. As she stepped forward, I caught the faintest shimmer of something. A glass, half filled with water, just sitting on a table as if someone had placed it there seconds ago, about to come back to drink it. But no one had come back. I felt my pulse quicken, that nagging sensation crawling up my spine. I wanted to leave, wanted to just turn around, but something kept me moving forward. Something kept me from turning around and running. So I walked further in. That's when I saw it. An old yellowed photograph hanging crookedly on the wall behind the counter. It wasn't a large photo, but it was enough to catch my eye. The frame was cheap, cracked at the corners, the glass dim and dusty. I don't know why, but I felt drawn to it, like something was pulling me toward it, something I couldn't explain. And when I looked at the faces in the photograph, my stomach dropped. There we were, Mr. Lisa. In a photo that made no sense, sitting at a table with strangers I didn't recognize, all of us smiling. But it wasn't just the unfamiliar faces that sent a jolt of fear through me. It was the fact that this photo didn't belong here. It didn't belong at all. It was too real, too perfect. The smiles, the poses. It was as if we were part of something I couldn't comprehend. Lisa saw it too. She came up behind me and gasped, her breath shaky. "Jake, what's going on?" I couldn't answer her. My eyes stayed locked on that photo, and in that moment I knew. I knew that we weren't just passing through this town. We weren't just stopping at a random diner on a long road trip. This wasn't a place we were meant to be. Before I could say anything, I heard it, the footsteps. At first, it was faint, just a soft scuff, like someone shuffling their feet on the floor, but it was close, too close. I spun around, trying to locate the source, but I couldn't see anyone. The diner was still empty, the tables still empty, the chairs unmoved. But those footsteps were getting louder, closer, as though someone was walking toward us from the back of the diner. Lisa's face paled. "Jake, who's here?" I didn't have an answer. The hairs on my neck stood up, every instinct in my body screaming at me to run, to get the hell out of there. But when I looked around, I saw him. A figure. Tall, thin, and standing perfectly still in the corner of the diner, just beyond the flickering lights. He was watching us, his eyes shadowed, his face hidden in darkness. But even in the dim light, I could see the smile. His mouth stretched far too wide, unnaturally wide, like something that didn't belong. His teeth gleamed in the half-darkness. I wanted to shout, to run, to tell Lisa to get out, but my voice was stuck. We were frozen, paralyzed, caught in the sight of this man who wasn't a man at all. And before we could even move, before we could even react, he was gone. Just like that. He vanished into the air, swallowed by the shadows. And when I blinked, he was no longer there. Lisa looked at me, her voice shaking. "Did you see that?" I didn't answer. I couldn't. The words felt stuck in my throat, lodged somewhere deep inside where fear and confusion swirled together. We needed to leave, fast. But I knew, deep down, it was already too late. This diner, this town, it wasn't just a place. It was waiting for us. And I couldn't escape. Neither of us could. Let me tell you, there are moments when you just know something's wrong. You can feel it creeping up on you, scratching at your mind, even though you can't explain it. I didn't know it then, but that feeling, that was when we crossed a line. We were in the diner. The place smelled old, dusty, like time had stopped the second we stepped inside. The air was thick, and the silence was just too much. It wasn't the kind of quiet you get from an empty place. It was the kind of silence that felt heavy, like it was pressing down on us, weighing us down. I remember looking at Lisa. Her face was pale, her eyes wide, scanning the room like she was searching for something, or someone. And me? I just felt like I was waiting for something to happen. But I couldn't put my finger on it. The strangest thing was the sound, or rather, the lack of sound. No buzzing lights, no distant hum of machines, nothing. But then, just as I started to get the nerve to break the silence and say something, I heard it. At first, it was so faint I thought it was just the wind, the soft scrape of shoes against the old wooden floor. Just a whisper, like the shadows were walking through the diner with us. But it didn't stop there. No, it came again. This time, louder, more deliberate. The sound of slow, heavy footsteps, echoing off the walls. I swear to you, I froze. I couldn't breathe. My pulse was pounding in my ears. My eyes darted around the room, but I couldn't see anyone. There was no one there, just empty space. I turned to Lisa. Her eyes were locked on the same spot I was staring at. "Do you hear that?" she whispered, her voice shaky, barely above a breath. I nodded. I couldn't speak. My throat was too tight, like something was choking me from the inside. I tried to focus on the footsteps, trying to make sense of them, but they kept getting louder, coming closer, step by slow step. And then, just when I thought I might lose my mind, they stopped. Completely. No fading, no last echoes, just silence again. The kind of silence that made you feel like something was lurking right behind you, waiting. Lisa and I exchanged a glance. She took a small step toward me. Maybe it's just, I don't know, the wind but I could feel it too, that cold weight pressing on my chest. It wasn't the wind. It wasn't some harmless draft. It was something else, something that didn't belong here. And then, as if to prove me right, the footsteps started again. But this time, they were different. They weren't faint anymore. They were right behind us, slow and heavy, as if something, was walking closer to us, step by deliberate step. I couldn't see anyone, but I knew something was there, my body locked up like I was paralyzed in place. Lisa grabbed my arm, and I felt her trembling beside me. "Jake, who's there?" she whispered, her voice a breathless rush of fear. I couldn't move, I couldn't speak. I turned, and that's when I saw it. In the corner of the diner, barely visible in the shadows, there was a figure. A tall, thin shape standing perfectly still, watching us. It didn't move, it didn't blink, it didn't even breathe, just watching. The dim light from the flickering bulbs above barely illuminated the edges of this figure, and the closer I looked, the more I could see it. Its face, oh God, its face. I couldn't make it out fully, but I could see enough. The eyes, dark, deep, hollow, empty. And the smile. It wasn't a smile, it was a grin. Too wide to be human. It stretched unnaturally, like it was not supposed to be there, like it had been stitched into place by something that didn't understand what a human face was supposed to look like. I swear, my heart stopped. I couldn't breathe, I couldn't think. "Jake," Lisa whispered again, her voice barely audible, but I heard it, and I could see the fear in her eyes. What is that?" But before I could answer or even respond, I felt a pull, a cold, horrible pull to the figure. It was like it was drawing me in, like it wanted me to see more, to understand what it was. I felt my body move forward, but my mind screamed to stop. I wanted to scream, to shout, but no sound came out. It was like my body wasn't my own. I could hear the footsteps again, moving closer, but this time they were right behind me. The figure didn't move, but I could feel it. It was like its presence was everywhere, suffocating me, pulling me closer to the edge of the diner, closer to the dark corner where it stood. And just as suddenly as I had started to move, I froze again. The figure was gone, vanished. Just like that. No sound, no shift in the air. It was like it had never been there in the first place. But I knew it had. And I knew that something was still here. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. I just grabbed Lisa's hand, pulling her with me toward the door, my heart hammering in my chest. The footsteps were behind us again, but I didn't look back. I couldn't. I pushed the door open, and the bell rang out with that hollow, mocking sound. But there was no relief outside, no escape. The fog had thickened, swallowing the world around us. We ran, we had to. But the footsteps, they didn't stop. And I swear to you, even now I can still hear them, slow, deliberate, following us, waiting for us to turn around. We had crossed into something we shouldn't have. And now, there was no way out. I've never been able to forget the feeling that crept over me that night. You know how some moments in life stay with you, gnawing at the edges of your memory, even when you wish you could erase them. That night, in that town, it changed me. I can still feel the weight of it, like it's pressing down on my chest even now. We were in the car, Lisa and I, stuck in the fog that seemed to swallow everything around us. The headlights barely cut through the mist, and I could barely see the road ahead. I don't know what made me keep going. Maybe it was the panic. Maybe it was the fear of what would happen if we stopped. But I pushed the accelerator harder, trying to escape the feeling that the town was pulling us deeper. Every turn we took, every road we tried to follow, led us right back to the same place. The same buildings, the same cars abandoned by the side of the road, the same eerie, unnatural stillness. The fog was closing in tighter now, almost suffocating. It felt like the air itself was alive, pressing down on us. It was like the town was holding us captive, refusing to let us leave. I could feel Lisa's eyes on me, her face pale, her lips trembling as she stared out the window. "Jake," she whispered, her voice barely audible. I could tell she was scared. Hell, I was scared too, but I tried to ignore it, tried to tell myself that we'd find a way out, that it was just a bad stretch of road, that we'd be fine if we just kept going. But something inside me told me we weren't fine. "This isn't normal," I muttered, though I wasn't even sure who I was saying it to anymore. My voice didn't sound like mine. It sounded distant, like it was coming from somewhere far away. "We've been driving in circles, Lisa. Look around. This place isn't right." Lisa didn't respond at first. She just kept staring out the window, her hands clenched tightly in her lap. I could feel the tension in the air, thick and suffocating. I wanted to stop, to figure out where we were, but every time I tried to turn the car, every time I thought I was breaking free, I found myself back in the same spot, the same town, the same fog. It was like we were trapped in a nightmare that we couldn't wake up from. Then, she spoke again, but this time her voice was barely a whisper, filled with a raw, uncontrollable fear. "Jake, look." I didn't want to look. I didn't want to see what was out there in the fog, but I turned my head anyway and I saw it. A figure, standing right in the middle of the road, just standing there. The figure was tall, too tall, and it didn't move. Its face was hidden in shadow, but I could feel its presence. It was like it was staring right through me, watching me, waiting. I didn't even know if it was human or if it was something else. But I couldn't look away. The moment I laid eyes on it, I felt that familiar weight in my chest. The weight of something ancient, something wrong. "Who is that?" Lisa's voice broke through the silence, trembling with terror. But I couldn't answer her. I couldn't even speak. My throat felt tight, like it was closing up, and all I could do was stare. The figure didn't move. It didn't blink. It didn't do anything. It just stood there, waiting, like it had been waiting for us all along. Suddenly, something clicked in my head. I remembered the photograph we'd seen in the diner. The photo of us, sitting with those strangers, smiling as if we were part of something that didn't belong to us. I tried to shake the thought, but it wouldn't leave. It kept repeating itself in my mind like a warning I couldn't escape. And then, as if the town itself was responding, the figure in the road began to move. Slowly, deliberately. I slammed my foot down on the gas pedal. I didn't think. I just ran, hoping that somehow, the faster I drove, the faster we could escape whatever this town was, whatever it had become. But the car wouldn't budge. The engine sputtered, and for a moment, I thought we had broken down. But no. The car was running fine. It was the town that had stopped us. "We need to get out of here," Lisa whispered, her voice barely more than a breath. I could feel her fear crawling over me, and I could hear her trying to hold it together. But I knew. We were trapped. I looked around, desperate for some way to break free, but nothing made sense anymore. The road that had once seemed endless was now just a loop that brought us back to the same spot every time. There was no exit, there was no escape. And then, just like that, I saw it. A photograph. The same photograph that had been on the wall in the diner. It was in my hands now, sitting right next to me. The same faces. Our faces. I could see us smiling, as if we had always been here, as if we had always belonged. It wasn't just a photo, it was proof. Proof that we were already part of this place. The town had claimed us. The town had erased us. I looked at Lisa, my voice cracking as I spoke. "Lisa, I don't know how, but we're already here. We're already part of this." And that's when I heard it, the whisper. It came from everywhere, the air, the fog, the very ground beneath us. It was soft, so soft I could barely hear it, but it was there, filling my head, like a voice I couldn't escape. "You're here now." I turned around, but there was no one behind me. There was no one anywhere. But the voice kept coming. It filled the car, it filled the air, and it kept saying the same thing over and over. "You will never leave." And that's when it hit me. The truth, the horrible, gut-wrenching truth. We weren't just lost in a town, we had become part of it. We had always been part of it. And there was no leaving. Not for us. Not for anyone who stepped foot in that cursed place. And as I stared into the thickening fog, I realized we were never going to escape. The town had taken us. And now we were just another lost memory in its endless, suffocating grip. I can still hear it. The sound of my breath, shaky and unsteady, mixing with the hum of the engine as I gripped the steering wheel tighter. Lisa sat next to me, her eyes wide with fear, her hands trembling in her lap. We'd been driving for hours, maybe longer. Time had lost meaning the moment we entered that town. It wasn't just the fog, it was the feeling of the place. The way it pressed in around us, like it was alive, suffocating everything it touched. I couldn't explain it, but I knew, deep down, that we were no longer in control. I slammed my foot down harder on the gas, trying to outrun the mist that seemed to follow us, always creeping closer, always swallowing the road ahead. But no matter how fast I drove, no matter how many turns I made, the town, it moved with us. Each twist in the road brought us back to the same place, the same buildings, the same empty streets. There was no escaping it. And that realization hit me like a punch to the gut. We were trapped. "Jake?" Lisa whispered, her voice barely audible over the sound of the engine. This isn't normal. It's like the town is alive." I didn't need her to say it. I could feel it too. The fog was thickening, pressing against the windows like it wanted to get in. And in the distance I saw it again, the shadow. At first, it was just a shape. A silhouette standing in the middle of the road, tall and still. But as we got closer, I saw it clearly. It was him, that figure, the one I had seen in the diner, the one with the hollow eyes and that grin that wasn't a grin at all. I felt my stomach drop as we neared it, my heart pounding in my chest. I wanted to stop, to turn around, to tell Lisa to hold on, but my hands were frozen on the wheel. My body wouldn't listen. It was like the town had already claimed us, and we were too far gone. Lisa gasped beside me. "Jake, stop! Please, stop!" I tried to, but the car wouldn't stop. It was like the town was pulling us toward him, toward that figure. I couldn't see his face clearly, but I knew. The smile, that impossible grin, stretching too wide, too unnaturally. And his eyes, black, empty, hollow, staring right through me. We were moving closer now, too close, and the figure didn't move. It didn't blink. It just stood there, in the middle of the road, waiting for us. And I could feel it. I could feel the air change. It wasn't the same anymore, the atmosphere, the weight of it. It was thicker now, like we were being suffocated by it. "We need to go," I whispered, my voice trembling. But I knew, deep down, that we were already too far in. We were already inside it. The town wasn't just a place. It was something else. Something ancient. Something that had seen us. And now it was waiting for us to become part of it. I slammed my foot down on the gas, but the car didn't move faster. It was as if the road itself had turned into mud, holding us in place, keeping us where we were. And I could feel it, the pull, like something was dragging us toward that figure, like we were being sucked into it. And then, in the blink of an eye, the world shifted. The fog wrapped around us, the mist thickening until I could barely see a few inches ahead. I could no longer see the figure, but I could feel him, feel his presence, pushing in on us from every direction. And suddenly, there it was. A photo, right beside me. I didn't even know when it appeared, but I saw it clearly. The same photo I had seen in the diner. I felt my blood run cold. It was a photo of us. Smiling, sitting in that diner, surrounded by people I didn't recognize, and there we were, smiling just like them. But we didn't belong there. We had never been there before. I looked at Lisa, my heart racing, and I knew she saw it too. Her eyes were wide, full of disbelief. "Jake, we weren't in that photo. We couldn't have been..." I couldn't answer her. I couldn't even speak. The words were stuck in my throat. Because I knew what was happening. We weren't just here. We had already been taken. The town had claimed us, erased us from the world. We were part of it now, and there was no going back. "Jake," Lisa whispered again, but her voice sounded distant, muffled, as though the fog had swallowed it. I turned to look at her, but I could barely see her face through the mist. The car felt wrong. We felt wrong. Like we were fading, slowly, bit by bit, slipping away into the town, into whatever this place had become. And then I heard it. A whisper. Soft, like it was coming from the fog itself, like it was coming from inside my head. "You're part of us now." It wasn't a voice. It wasn't even a sound. It was just there, pressing into my mind, into my soul. I gasped, my chest tightening, my vision starting to blur. "Lisa," I croaked, but my voice was barely a whisper. She didn't respond. I couldn't hear her breath. I couldn't hear anything, just the whisper, growing louder, growing more insistent. "You will never leave." And that was it. The car stopped. The fog grew thick. darker than anything I'd ever seen, swallowing the world whole. And I could feel it. The end was here. We were fading away, slipping into the shadows of the town, becoming part of its history, its memory. The last thing I remember is the figure, the smile, the empty eyes, and then nothing. I don't know how long we've been here, or if we're even here at all anymore. All I know is this: the town has claimed us. And now, we are part of it. Forever. We were never meant to leave. We were never meant to escape. It's hard to put into words what happened, but I'll try. We're stuck here, you see. We've been swallowed whole by this place, and now there's no way out. I don't know how much time has passed. Minutes, hours, days. It doesn't matter. Time doesn't make sense here. This town, this thing, it doesn't play by the same rules. And once you're inside, it bends you, reshapes you, makes you a part of it, whether you like it or not. The fog still clings to everything around us. It wraps around me, presses against my skin, thick and suffocating. I can hear it now, the town, breathing in the air with me like it's alive, like it's hungry. The whispers haven't stopped. They're always there, just beneath the surface, murmuring in the back of my mind, telling me that I'm one of them now. One of the lost souls who wander these streets, stuck in an endless loop, fading into nothing. I look at Lisa, and I don't even know if she's really her anymore. Her eyes, those once bright, curious eyes, are empty now. Hollow. Like she's been pulled into something so deep, so dark, that she's lost herself completely. And I don't blame her. I'm not much better. I feel myself slipping away, like my identity is being erased, like I'm dissolving into the very fog that surrounds us. I don't even know when it happened, but I remember the moment it clicked, the moment when I realized the truth. We weren't just passing through. We weren't visitors. We were never meant to leave. We were already part of this place. The town had claimed us the moment we stepped into it. The photo, I see it again, that damn photo, the one from the diner, the one with our faces, smiling, happy, like we belonged. But we didn't belong. We didn't belong here. Yet, as I stare at it, I can't help but feel something pull at me, something drawing me closer to it. The more I look, the more I see it. Our faces, frozen in time. But something's wrong. We don't belong there. We are part of it now. That photo isn't just a picture. It's a reflection of what we've become, of who we've become. I look around. The fog isn't just fog anymore. It's shifting, twisting, becoming something else. Faces form in it. I don't recognize them at first, but then it hits me. Those faces are familiar. I know them. I've seen them. The people from the diner, the ones we saw before everything went wrong. They were smiling, laughing. But they weren't alive, not really. They were part of this place, just like us. I don't know how it happens, but the fog thickens and suddenly I see it. The photo, drifting in the air in front of me. It's like the town itself is handing it to me, showing it to me. And I see it, our faces. But they aren't just there. They're in the fog now, too. I see the same smiles, the same expressions we had in that diner, the same way we looked at the camera. But now, I see them in the mist, and I know. We aren't just in the photo, we are the photo. It's not just a memory, it's not just a piece of time, it's us, our faces, our identities, taken, absorbed, trapped in this endless cycle of erasure. We were never meant to leave. We were always meant to stay here, in this fog, in this town, where the past is lost and the future is nothing but whispers. I turn to Lisa. She doesn't speak. She doesn't need to. Her eyes are empty, like mine. I can feel it now, the pull, the way the town is swallowing us, changing us, until there's nothing left but these smiles, these faces, frozen in the fog. And I can see it in her eyes too. She knows. We both know. We are part of the town now. We are part of the fog. And when the next poor soul stumbles through, lost and confused, they'll see us. They'll see our faces, smiling at them from the edges of the mist, and they'll wonder who we were, who we are. But they won't be able to leave, not anymore. Because once you're here, once the town has taken you, you don't leave. You just become another part of its endless, twisting nightmare. And now, our faces will be waiting for the next ones, smiling, forever trapped in the fog, waiting to draw them in. We are the lost souls of this place, and will never leave. Forever. Thank you for venturing into the shadows with me here at Frightful Whispers. Remember, the darkness holds secrets, but also whispers truths to those who dare to listen. If tonight's tale sent shivers down your spine, be sure to like, share, and subscribe. It helps keep the fire of fright alive. Rest easy, but keep one eye open, for the night is never truly still. Until we meet again, stay vigilant, stay curious, and let the whispers guide you.